Thank you so much, Dave. It's great to be with you all on this beautiful morning. And though I'm not here all the time, I definitely feel very much part of this Sangha. So I appreciate your welcome here. And Dave did just summarize kind of what I want to go into this morning. Expressing spirituality through our senses. You know, yesterday we were doing some house cleaning, and I went out and filled the bird feeder in my bare feet. And it was a little chilly, but man, it felt great. You know, being in the grass, like, that's a possibility of spring. And, that's expressing spirituality through our senses. When we remember what it was like when we were kids, you know, just open, free, innocent, marveling at what's around us. It's really very simple, isn't it? You know, to just come home to ourselves in being. I love the piece from Father Moore. That's a good remembrance all the time. What I'm wanting to kind of go into this morning a little bit is how expressing spirituality through our senses can tie into spiritual practice, and how that kind of ties into the dance of the universal peace. If I can get all this in one fell swoop here, we'll see. This song that we just sang, in Sanskrit it sounds like this: Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Vijorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti is the primordial peace, the peace that's always present and underlies this moment. Everything that happens arises out of that being place. So this prayer is an orientation in our spiritual practice to what is most important, the most important thing in life, which is to be back in line, back connected to our being, so that each of us can express and bring forward the most we have, the absolute highest that we can attain as living beings. So the prayer is kind of like, get me straightened out. You know, and in spiritual practice, sometimes it can be like being flayed alive to look at ourselves clearly. You know, lead us from falseness to the truth. There's a lot of falseness around out there, but what about the falseness in me? You know, what about the stuff I'm not, really kind of looking at? So that's one thing. From darkness to light. You know, light is the highest vibration. If we're putting the light on something, we've taken it in. You know, it's part of us now, and then we can start living from that. And from death to eternal life. You know, is death real in the scheme of things? Seems real enough for the person part of us. But in being, we don't think about death, do we? You know? So these, this alignment of ourselves with what's truly important, and if you think about the most important thing in your life, is it may be your kids or your grandkids or your work or whatever that might be. If you really get into that and boil it down to its essence, the essence of that thing, it's really your highest calling. It's the thing you're living for. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning. And coming here to CSL is part of that. You know, CSL is it's something that calls you to be, to live, to try to understand the mystery of this that we're engaged in. And that is spiritual practice. That's what spiritual practice is. It's a surrender to that reality. It's bringing forth the gratefulness and the gratitude in us for the opportunity to be a sentient being on the planet. It's finding forgiveness for those things that are, hanging on us and we haven't quite finished with yet. And remembrance of being, in which really everything is taken care of. So spiritual practice, shakes up these habitual places in our lives that are, where we're stuck. I think of it as like bugs on the windshield, Got to get out the solvent and work on that stuff. And, those of us who are trying to be good people and live, a real life on the planet, this is what we're involved with. This is spiritual life. Spiritual practice then is that which feeds that and lifts us up. So I'd like to kind of segue here to then what about body prayer? How does what we could call body prayer assist in that levitation we're trying to do? Well, let's take a couple examples. Let's take from Islam, the prayer that's done 5 times a day, where you kneel and put your forehead on the ground. I don't know if you've ever tried this, but it's a very, very beautiful practice. Why? Well, for one thing, we're putting the head below the heart. We're elevating the heart, which is not only our organ of love, where love emerges from the body, but it's our faculty that is able to sense wholeness. The heart is our organ of wholeness. And very often a problem cannot be solved with the mind. If you're like me, you'll find that out. Sometimes you just don't know. How are you going to figure it out? So you put your head below your heart and say, I don't know how to solve this. And then we're in a position of surrender before the mystery, which is sometimes the only place we can be. And the other part of it that I love is that thoughts, impressions, emotions, that are swirling around can just be dumped into the earth. Give that energy back. Give it to somebody else, or let God handle it. So all that is, prostrating before Allah. So it's a tremendously freeing body prayer practice. Let's take another one, the Semazin, the whirling dervish. If you've ever watched the dervishes in the Sema, it's called, dressed in white and turning for a long, long time. What they're doing is finding the place inside themselves that is zero, that is nothing, and hanging out in that place, starting to spin and spin around that place so they don't get dizzy. They're in the place of no place. And that is an elevating experience spiritually for them and anybody present. I mean, talk about atmosphere. It's the atmosphere of everything and nothing. This practice originated when it said Jalaluddin Rumi lost his teacher Shams, and he was so distraught he started turning around the pillar in the mosque. And that's where that practice came from. Sufis have been dancing for hundreds of years, therefore, And a little bit along later came Murshid Sammy Lewis, a Sufi teacher in the Bay Area of the United States in the 1960s. And the hippies of the day were his students. And among the things that came to him at that time was, why not a dance of universal peace, where we're dancing to the sacred phrases of all the world's traditions. Murshid had been to Pakistan and Egypt and some places like that and seen Sufi zikr. Sufi zikr is another kind of body prayer. If you take the sacred phrase, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha, there is nothing ill except Allah. You can fill in the blank on that. Allah, wholeness, unity, the one, God. La ilaha illallah. There is nothing except that. So in a zikr, you might be stepping back on the left foot. La ilaha. Coming in. Illallahu. La ilaha illallah. So just in those movements, we have fana, letting go of the unreal, the no longer needed, the log in my eye, illallahu, stepping in, baka, it's called fana, and baka, filling up with the real, filling up with a being that is informed by wholeness or by unity. So in a course of an evening of zikr, then you might do that hundreds of times or something like it. So you can see how, as body prayer, that was he's sort of reinforcing this most important thing. You know, the Zen teacher Adi Shanti talks about the most important thing as a spiritual impulse. The spiritual impulse or instinct in each of us is this thing that we hold to, that it actually arises out of our very being. You know, coming to CSL isn't just something that, well, it feels good for my ego to get out with other folks and be with them. No, it's a really deep, important thing, this impulse or instinct that draws us to know, to engage, to be living for the highest that we can attain to, right? So lining up in our daily practice of meditation or the other things we do, and if it's walking in nature or whatever it might be, or Sufi zikr, it's all about lining up with that spiritual instinct, reinforcing it, continuing to forgive and let go, and step into the real. Just to segue lastly into the dances of universal peace, what's so radical about them, I think, is that we've taken this practice of spiritual instinct and looking at ourselves and growing, and now we're doing it face to face with other people. Suddenly we're engaged in relationship. We're not just a room full of people meditating, but we're actually looking at each other's eyes. We're engaged in the real, in the work of the real, working on us together. So, you know, what happens in the dances, there's a leader who brings a dance, they teach the words, the music, and the movements, and then we may have a little rehearsal, and then we do this dance together. Some of them are partner dances, some are not, but they vary from highly ecstatic, very active, to extremely intimate and inward. And many of you here have been to whole weekends or whole weeks of this kind of activity, which is really quite a step into a different reality. It's the reality of the real, and so much is brought by the leader in their attunement. The sacred phrases are like tinctures from the different religions. They're a pharmacopoeia of healing for the human condition. There are all kinds of things in the human condition that we each have a part of, that applies to me. La ilaha illallah. It applies to me, yeah. I get it. I need that. So, we go there together. Another thing is blending the movements with the group. When I was in graduate school, I needed a PE class, so I took modern dance. And it was amazing. I was out moving across the dance floor with these mostly other women, actually. And we were all doing the same movements. And I had this feeling of, wow, it's amazing. I've just sort of disappeared into this container of movement. And it wasn't until I came to the dances that I realized, oh, we can surrender into the whole. We can surrender into unity. There's no need to make a personal statement like we did in the 60s, It's okay to disappear into a group and everybody be doing the same thing and discover what that might be. Another thing is presence. We each have a candle of presence. But you bring that together in a group and we have a torch of presence. Hard thing to quantify, but it can be felt. So those are some of the things about the dances that can't really be talked about in the abstract very much. You have to experience it. But I think the main thing I wanted to emphasize today is that spiritual practice draws us out of our comfort zone. And it allows us to let go of the self-limiting beliefs and habits and the things we've accumulated along the way and get back to the real that is really only in wholeness. Only in wholeness is where we find the real. And we can all find it there together if we're willing to let go of all ideas about how it should be. People often come to the dances and say, oh my God, I found my tribe. I can be who I am. Well, we can be who we are at CSL, too. There's that kind of acceptance. And that's a salve for this place that's meant to live free, the radiant beauty of our souls shining. And so I think we'll segue into the last song here, which is the words of Meister Eckhart. Who I gave a talk about here a while back. Yeah, let's stand for this. And we can think of this seed of God grows into God. He said a seed of God grows into God. A seed of a nut tree grows into a tree. A seed of a pomegranate grows into a pomegranate. A seed of God grows into God. That would be us. That would be that spiritual instinct that is constantly wanting to have its way with us. It sounds like it. A seed of God grows in